This lesson covers one of the darkest chapters of American history. It deals with the nation's shameful treatment of Native American groups, which culminated in the forced removal of several tribes from what is modern-day Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. The Trail of Tears, a forced migration of 16,000 Cherokee that resulted in over 4,000 civilian deaths, is the most poignant symbol of American cruelty to Native Americans. It has left scars that still mar the United States' relationship with Native groups to this day. As we discussed in past lessons, most European newcomers to America only rarely enjoyed good relations with their Native American neighbors. They continually encroached on native lands and forced their migration westward. Disease had destroyed much of the native population in North America, which weakened and transformed native society significantly. The history of native relations has been one of distrust and intermittent warfare. By the 1820s, native groups had managed to establish shaky treaties with the American government, which ensured them a degree of autonomy on the lands they possessed. But as land-hungry settlers began to move west, these agreements often failed. The United States government had attempted several policies to deal with natives living within its borders. One policy championed the nationhood of native tribes. This meant that each native group was considered a sovereign nation with its own separate system of laws. The federal government approached them in the same way they would any foreign nation. This did not become a fully formed policy for several reasons. Native nations did not have a unified system of government like the United States. Treaties often failed because they did not represent whole native groups. Native nationhood also did not succeed as a coherent policy because tribes lived entirely within the borders of the United States on lands that many states considered part of their territory. Settlers therefore refused to respect native borders, either out of ignorance or aggression. Others hoped that native groups would assimilate into American society, removing the need for treaties or land agreements. This was more of a rhetorical hope than an actual comprehensible policy. Indeed, many natives did adopt parts of Western culture. The native tribes that occupied what is today Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida were known by Americans as the 5 civilized tribes because they had adapted much of white culture, including the institution of slavery and republican government. These 5 tribes included the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole nations. The Cherokee in particular had a written constitution with representative government, published newspapers, and used similar agricultural techniques as their white neighbors. But incompatible cultural values, different and often contentious histories, and indeed entrenched racism on both sides made complete assimilation of native groups impossible. The inherent racism of this notion is obvious and as well likely insulted native leaders. The nation's policy toward natives was based on a failure to recognize the value of their unique culture or the natural rights of native individuals.